Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
What if your symptoms are warnings, not inconveniences? How many signs does your body give before it breaks down? Are you listening to your body or just silencing it? What are body's emergency signals before crisis hits? Hello and welcome to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria C. Warren. The body does not suddenly fail. It signals first, but are we listening? What are the emergency signals from your body? And why do we ignore them? I should say time and time again. What are the common signals? Most importantly, we will then discuss how to respond to them. This show, where we take the medical and the intuitive, provide the preventive perspective. Here joining us today is our guest, Nurse Peggy Smith, from her show, The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. Hello, Peggy, and welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Sometimes if we compare our body to our automobile, when the warning light comes on, we rush right to the mechanic to make sure we're not going to break down on the bridge. But when our warning lights and our bodies go off, we just will you leave me alone? Shut up. I got things to do.
I'm driving. Yes, I know I do quite often, actually. I know that the body is always communicating, and crisis happens when communication is ignored long enough. Just like if you ignore that emergency light, what happens when your car breaks down? That's crazy, but we do it. So we're going to discuss in segment 1 here, what are emergency signals? So what do you look for? Pretty much. So emergency signals are early warning signs, just like that blinker light, that idiot light they call it on the dash. The early warning signs that the body sends before disease, diagnosis, or anything in your body usually breaks down. So, and those can be persistent fatigue, anxiety without an obvious cause, digestion disruption, sleep disturbances, brain fog, that's one of my specialties, and unexplained pain or inflammation. I don't know about you, Peggy, but yeah, I'll get brain fog every now and then. It's like all of a sudden, a certain time of night, I know they say, be careful culturally. I have blonde hair, so I do some dumb things. I'll just put it that way. I'll say things that I'll be like, oh no, it's after 5. My brain fell asleep, because the brain fog will set in because my brain is so overused, but I don't pay much attention to it sometimes. And I keep going. And then I get severe exhaustion. And I really need to stop that. I don't know. Do you have any
Well, I do. I think I'm just a little bit older than you, and you get to where you're making jokes all the time. Oh, there's one of those senior moments again, or
Yeah.
it's not every senior, has to have those moments, and you can wait till your 90s to start them if you live your life right. But most relationships, when they fail, your marital relationships or family relationships, it's usually a breakdown in communication. And you don't usually consider yourself having a relationship with yourself, but that is the most important relationship in your life. And if you're not listening to yourself and communicating with your body and your mind, um, it's going to be kind of like, do we go get a lawyer and divorce ourselves now, or what? You can't usually do that. So you got to work out some other healthier choices.
Right. And I know like you really suffer from a lot of persistent fatigue in your position in your professional field. And me, it's I constantly for because of my situation. So I had to communicate with myself and say, okay, I'm going to close the door at night and she's just going to have to make do to a certain extent. But otherwise, I would not get any consistent sleep. So yes, it doesn't always happen that I can sleep the whole time because of things happening in the home, but it really helped. It helped me. But even digestive disruption, that's one's very common.
Well, I don't know if
People,
you use a visual baby monitor, but a lot of families in your
oh,
situation do. So that
I never
way
thought of
you
that.
have peace of mind and you can have your privacy and moments to yourself. But if you feel that you hear something, you just need to check to make sure because that's your normal reaction as a caregiver. A baby monitor or a home, local camera actually helps,
That's a
especially if it's a
fantastic
two-way.
idea.
You can actually
Yeah.
communicate, with the person.
Oh, right. So, let me go through the medical lens. Through a medical lens, the nervous system, it's called dysregulation. It ends up, you can end up also with inflammatory signaling, swelling in the body from cortisone and everything else that happens when you're not paying attention and hormone imbalance. Nervous system dysregulation, that's autonomic imbalance, sympathetic overdrive, parasympathetic suppression. This is when things happen traumatically in your home or your family. You can suffer from that type of thing, and basically anybody can suffer at any time. But it's not an easy thing to deal with, though, when it comes. Common symptoms, anxiety or panic attacks. And I know I've had a panic attack in the past and heart palpitations. I mean, I can go down the list for myself. But, anyways, outside of me, heart palpitations, shallow breathing, or like feeling like you're not getting enough air. Sleep disturbances, like when Pops died, I kept waking up in the middle of the night because he always woke me up and my body was still used to it. Digestive irregularities, IBS, for instance, irritable bowel syndrome, some of the symptoms you get with that. Heightened startle response, like you jump too easily. Difficulty relaxing even when nothing's wrong. I'm so much in the fight or flight with everything happening in my life that this is a problem sometimes. Um, Everyday examples are feeling constantly on edge or hyper alert, crashing emotionally or physically after stress. That's me after these shows. I'm down for the count. Needing constant stimulation like coffee and things like that to function, and feeling exhausted but unable to rest. When I'm exhausted, I can rest if people let me. I'm out like down for the count. But the overstimulation, I think that's one of my weaknesses. I go through phases where I want to drink more and more coffee, and then I need the coffee and I'm overstimulating. So I have to cut back on the coffee, and it's a constant cycle with me. I don't know. Do you drink coffee at all?
I don't because I take a medication actually that it's not advised to do that, but it's all about trying to achieve balance, and balance is
Hmm.
easier said than done, but also easier to do than you would think. Um, and it comes down to self-awareness, again, learning to communicate with yourself. Your body's funny. If it's giving you small, subtle signs and you're ignoring it, well, then it's going to give you a bout of IBS and you can't ignore it. You're going to be in the bathroom and you can't be there for the patient that you're taking care of or anything else.
Yeah.
Um, I had to laugh. I was on hold with a customer service agent with the mobile phone company the other day, and it took forever. She was in a different country, and she's getting really restless. I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I have to go to the bathroom." She said, "I've never told a customer that." I said, "It's okay. We've been on hold for a half hour. It's probably going to be a few more minutes. Go ahead, take care of yourself." But if you
Right.
keep ignoring it, your body gets louder and louder until maybe it shows you by a very traumatic thing like a heart attack or something. I mean,
Right.
uh,
Right.
your body can only take so much. Your car can only take so much, and you're not a
Hmm.
machine, and even machines break down. You know, If they're not well oiled and well, maintenance checks and things like that, you're going to break down.
So give yourself permission to relax. And also remember, this is not a weakness. It's a nervous system stuck in survival mode. And it plays havoc even with inflammatory signalings, or chronic low-grade inflammation is often invisible on routine labs. They're not going to, your doctor may not find those things. Common symptoms actually for that are, you could be in a heightened level of stress and feel joint pain, muscle pain, headaches, migraines, very typical. Brain fog, chronic fatigue, skin conditions, eczema, psoriasis, rashes. People get rashes sometimes, it's like that movie, Something About Mary, It happens. And digestive inflammation can cause constipation. It can cause diarrhea, just the opposite thing. Your body responds in many different ways, and you need to listen.
And your
Everyday
body also is a product of many different realms. Your spiritual and your mental care needs to be just as important as getting your annual physicals and keeping in touch with your doctor if something physical shows up. And it's about achieving balance, which is, nurses are very good about telling people that. And, we
Mhm.
practice as I say, not as I do. I'll admit it. We're not, that part we haven't mastered yet, but we know what to tell you, how to tell you what to do to live a balanced life. And it
Right.
applies
And
to including the
right.
caregivers.
Like, you could wake up feeling stiff, no reason, pain moves around in your body, feeling flu-like without being sick, or symptoms just start worsening during emotional stress. Inflammation in the body is the body's alarm system. It rises when the body feels threatened and overwhelmed or unsafe. It also causes hormone imbalance. The cortisol, that's something I watch for myself. Insulin, thyroid, sex hormones, melatonin, the natural hormones and everything are all affected. Common symptoms in those, when the hormones are affected, you got weight changes, um, fatigue, mood swings, irritability. Some of those toxic people may be suffering from this. Anxiety or depression, temperature sensitivity,
You're
irregular.
being invited to a family holiday dinner and you know that it's going to be hostile. You
Yeah,
know,
mix of different people.
you can prepare for that, or maybe you could even say, gee, I'm feeling under the weather, I don't want to expose anybody, and you're really just protecting yourself. You don't have to say I can't be around toxic people. There's
Right.
games we play in social environments. But you can also make appearances and then leave early, and things like
Yeah.
that. Or prepare yourself mentally. I know they're going to have this discussion. I'm not going to partake in it. Maybe I'll go visit the children at the children's table or something. See
Sometimes
what
you
they
have
got.
more fun, like that guy in that
Always
commercial. Play with the
have.
kids. The others will be envious. You can be wired at night, exhausted in the morning, cravings that feel uncontrollable. The wired at night, cut out all your coffee if that's the case. Emotional volatility that feels not like me. You need to listen to your body, and hormones respond to stress first, long before anything or disease or condition appears. So,
Well, it's not
from a
just
medical,
caffeine,
yeah,
though. Sugars, I mean, your comfort foods, they're not always long-term healthy for you. But most of us have, ice cream or pasta or something that's our comfort food. And it,
right,
it causes more inflammation and more signs that you won't see right away, but could still be complications.
yeah. And from a medical intuitive lens, emotional overload stored in the body, um, and it can also be energy depletion. It can show up as, or misalignment between the demands of biological capacity and feeling drained after you're rested, and loss of motivation, depressed, frequent illnesses, feeling hollow or empty. Caregivers, healers, people in the medical community, many professions can feel this way. People who feel responsible for anyone else. Emotional overload is, manifested in the body: tight shoulders, chronic neck, digestive issues, fear lodged in the gut. What we don't feel emotionally, the body feels physically, and causes misalignment. burnout, anxiety, there we go again, brain fog, high performers ignore the rest. And symptoms often appear when life we're living no longer matches what the body can sustain. So when we come back, we'll talk about why so many people ignore these early warning signs and what that costs the body over time. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
You're listening to Medical Intuitive Insights. Today, we are exploring the body's emergency signals, the messages that arrive long before a crisis. So why do we ignore these signals? Well, there are certain reasons, and we normalize discomfort. Oh, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Symptoms are labeled as stress or aging, very common. And should not be the case that people do that. Quick fixes mute signals instead of resolving them. Just take an ibuprofen or take some acetaminophen, or, you'll be fine, and we're praised for pushing through it. Oh, how did you do that? Oh, that's amazing. Good job. Not necessarily. So, let me talk to you just for a minute. We're praised for pushing through. Let's just think about that. We live in a culture that praises pushing through. We're applauded for working while we're exhausted, for showing up when we're sick, for carrying stress without complaining. We're told we're strong when we ignore our bodies, reliable when we skip rest, and resilient when we keep going at all costs. From a young age, we learn that slowing down is a sign of weakness and that rest is something you earn, not something you need. Caregivers are praised for never stopping. Professionals are rewarded for burnout. And when symptoms appear, we're often told to manage them. Don't listen to them. But the body keeps score. It doesn't care about praise or productivity. It only knows when it's being pushed beyond its capacity. So when anxiety, fatigue, pain, or illnesses show up, it's not failure, it's communication. The body isn't breaking down, it's asking to be heard. Healing begins when we stop pushing through and start paying attention. So, coping versus healing. I know coping, Peggy, helps you function despite the problem, and healing addresses why the problem exists in the first place. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's like going back to the automobile analogy. If you if your brakes are just making a little squeal or something when you stop, and you ignore it, you're going to end up needing brake pads, rotors, and everything, like several $100 more.
Ah,
So, and if you're ignoring the minor physical signs, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And now instead of one visit to your primary to see what's going on and how you can change your lifestyle, perhaps to cope, um, you're actually, I remember I had a medical emergency a few years ago and I needed to be in the hospital. I had kidney stone episode. And I told the doctor, I'm not coming to the hospital. I don't have anyone to watch my dogs. And she goes, well, if you die today, who's going to watch your dogs? I said, oh, God knows what he's doing. Nobody wants these dogs. I had excuses for everything. Uh, in retrospect, when I realized how sick I really was, very grateful that, common sense finally took over. But I'm stubborn and most of us are stubborn and we want to be, just live forever and, we just feel like we're not going to break down until then we can't move anymore. Um, and you're not really coping. It's an illusion. Sometimes
yeah,
it's just,
that's
sometimes
great.
the simple is increasing your hydration. Hydration, again, we keep coming back to that show after show.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if you've got a lot of toxins that just are getting stuck in the nooks and crannies of your insides, a good hydration, it will get that, flush those poisons out. Um, it's not always an expensive fix, but I think we've been trained to expect anything, medical that's serious is going to be very expensive. And obviously, many times it is, without politics, medications are too costly and, people don't have access like they should. But at least when you know what you're dealing with, once rather than worry, oh my gosh, am I getting cancer? You know, find out. And if you're getting cancer, you're going to get it anyway. But at least if you deal with it up front, you know what your options are. If you're going to sit and worry about what if it's cancer, and you worry until now it's stage 4 instead of stage 1 or 2. Um,
Right.
there's real financial and life changing complications, consequences.
Right. So coping, basically, it helps us get through the day and manage symptoms, but healing helps with the body returning to balance, while healing interventions restore the underlying physiological and regulatory function.
I
So
think the
how in,
World Health Organization definition of illness is actually, an imbalance of all of the different systems that keep our
right.
bodies together.
Hmm. And how anxiety often emerges when the body feels unheard. It often arises when the body's signals are ignored long enough. It has to escalate the message. It's like, shake me now. Because if you don't, you're going to have this problem and it's going to be major. That car is going to break down. You're going to need everything, like you said, even the rotors. And Lord knows how
Yeah.
much that cost. When the body doesn't feel heard, anxiety becomes its way of asking for attention and safety.
And I think
Anxiety,
fear of the unknown is one of the biggest causes of anxiety because our bodies and minds are built and engineered to be able to, once you know what you're dealing with, then you can develop a plan, a course of treatment or a strategy. And there's always options, maybe not the options we prefer sometimes, but you can get a team to help you of professionals that specialize in whatever the issue is. But if you don't know, the fear of the unknown, um, and I've
right.
always found in nursing that anticipatory, the things that we're anxious about is 99% worse than the actual event when it turns out we know
Mhm.
what's going on. So we make
Yeah,
it worse by worrying about it.
right. The anxiety can reflect the autonomic nervous system activation in response to unmet needs, physiological as well as psychological. And it's often the body speaking louder and louder and louder after the quieter messages went unanswered. Yeah, and that's just like the car broke down because I ignored the ticking in the engine and the light on the dash. So, and then there's symptom suppression versus root cause. And I just wanted to say something about root cause. This is something I do in medical intuition. I look at all the symptoms, I look at all the connections, and then I find the root cause. See, in modern healthcare, we're often taught to silence symptoms as quickly as possible. Headaches treated with medication, anxiety is managed with suppression, fatigue is pushed through. While symptom relief can be appropriate and sometimes necessary, it's important to understand that symptoms are not the problem, they're signals. When we focus on only suppressing a symptom, we may reduce discomfort, but we often miss the question that the body's asking. Why is this happening? What system is under strain? And what has been building beneath the surface? Root cause care looks beneath the symptom to the patterns driving it. It's nervous system overload, chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalance, emotional stress, misalignment between life demands and biological capacity. When those patterns are addressed, symptoms often resolve naturally without force. Suppressing symptoms without listening can delay healing and allow imbalance to deepen. Listening to symptoms doesn't mean avoiding treatment. It means using symptoms as information, not enemies. The body isn't malfunctioning, it's communicating. Healing begins when we stop silencing the message and start understanding it. This is huge, that we must communicate. It's back to what we were said in the first quarter. We must communicate. So,
my mother, I've said this in the past, she had this phrase, if you have to ask the question, you already know the answer. And
yep,
what happens when
I
you're
agree.
asking that question is you want somebody to give you a different answer because you don't like the answer that your gut has told you.
Right. And it's like us. Oh, that's okay. That flashing light, it does it all the time. We didn't like the real
They always
answer.
have
Why
lights in
it's
them that don't
flashing?
mean anything. I know.
Yeah.
Just like a couple weeks ago, I had a blowout on a major bridge. My tire light
Oof.
went on to tell me there was an air pressure problem. I figured it was the weather outside. It went from freezing in the morning to, comfortable by noon. As soon as I got off the bridge, I heard the clunk, 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 and I had to drive a couple miles on my rim, which is not, costing
Oof.
more money too. Um, so you really have to be aware. You can't live in a bubble, even with yourself, especially with yourself.
Yeah. There's so much you can do to help yourself once you accept that there is a problem and you need time to heal. It's
Well,
not,
maybe if you rephrase your thinking and say there instead of there is a problem, that, well, this is a challenge, but I've got tools and I've got professionals that can get me through this challenge. I'm not doing it alone. But
oh, yes, teamwork.
teamwork,
Hmm. That's something I usually forget about when it comes to myself. I remember it for everybody else, but when it comes to myself, I don't know about you, but I'm so thinking about other people and helping and doing things that I forget about myself. And I
uh,
remember when Pops was alive, he would have candy with him all the time. And I always hypoglycemic. Bam, my blood sugar go down to like 35. Oh no, here's the candy, here, let me get you some soda. I mean, he always remembered for me. That was teamwork though. Now that he's not there, I don't have that. And it's so hard to remember I need to have something with me because I forget to eat sometimes. So, teamwork, communication, open communication, teamwork, and anxiety is often the nervous system waving a red flag. Hey, I'm over here. Something's not right. It's not a psychological failure. It can be a physiological problem or a psychological problem. And that's when you need to stop, take that red flag by your hand, go marching around with it and figure out, all right, what's going on? If you need help, see somebody, call people, check, what have you noticed? Go see your medical professional. Self-sustainability is about you having the sustainability to know who you want to see. I mean, it's who you're comfortable with, whatever type of medical professional you want, whether it's a physician or a functional medicine practitioner or whatever, please see somebody. We're going to take a commercial break again. After the break, we'll explore the most common emergency signals people experience and what they often point to beneath the surface. So trust me, you don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. Let's stop and talk about the signals people feel every day, but they're rarely interpreted correctly. So these are common emergency signals and what they mean, okay? So one very common one is chronic fatigue, and that's adrenal depletion or emotional burnout. These are most of the time, okay? Adrenal depletion, emotional burnout. It feels like your body's running on empty, no matter how much sleep you get or rest, as if the system that fuels you has been quietly drained. So it's a very common one. We mentioned fatigue a few times already, so let's move on to digestive stress. It's a stress response, unresolved emotional processing. This is very common in life-death situations. It feels like your gut is constantly unsettled, reacting as though it's bracing for stress, even when you're trying to be calm. Headaches and migraines, very common. I know people that get migraines chronically, and I keep saying, if you want to talk about it, we can figure this out. It means basically it's overload, boundary issues, inflammation, or dehydration. It feels like pressure building and nowhere to release it, as though your system is overwhelmed and asking for relief and boundaries. Sleep disruption, the next one, nervous system hypervigilance. Yeah, that's what happened to me when my pops died. I was up in the middle of the night because I kept thinking I was hearing him calling me because he was very ill. Feels like your body can't fully stand down. Remaining alert and on guard even when the world is quiet. Anxiety attacks, more common than people realize. The body's asking for safety, rest, regulation. Feels like your body is urgently signaling for safety, regulation, when it no longer feels able to cope on its own. I actually find that anxiety attacks is my body has a physical response to my confusion in my mind. And it's usually also when I haven't had enough rest and then something major is happening. How about you, Peggy?
Well, my body is very obnoxious about telling me physically if I'm not paying attention.
Yay!
And it's like, but I don't have time to go to the bathroom now. We're already late. And
Mhm.
But maybe if I look from hindsight, gee, I could have prepared my day better and I wouldn't be anxious to begin with. And, I mean, there's ways to, if you know you're prone to this kind of physical response, then you can take steps prior to getting to the point where your body's going to slam it in your face, whether you hear it or not, and it's, keeping a sense of humor is also important in communication and getting to know your body. Um, People, oh, I'm so clumsy, and well, maybe your body's telling you, you're clumsy because your blood sugar dropped, you didn't eat breakfast today, or your brain fog is because you didn't start your day with your Wheaties. We know we do better if we eat breakfast in the morning. But we also provide so much structure for children growing up. We know it's good for children, and I used to have a joke in my mind. I grew up so I wouldn't have to eat vegetables. Well, how did that serve me as an adult? But I made sure the kids had their vegetables, and as adults, we need that structure too. We need those compartments in our life, the safety nets. We need places to just decompress when we're, maybe when you first come home from work, if you're going to come home to a chaotic home environment, on your way home, maybe stop at gas station or something and take some deep breaths, like you said. Um,
Mhm.
but you don't have a parent telling you when you're an adult to do these things, and we didn't grow up so we didn't have to do them. We just didn't recognize we do still need them. They served a purpose then, and we still have that purpose. It's part of being human.
Oh, that's so true. I definitely can grasp what you're saying there. So, though there's also some other ones you actually mentioned: one, brain fog, cognitive slowing. So what causes that? For the most part, nervous system overload, inflammatory signaling. It feels as though your thoughts are moving like molasses, making even simple decisions feels effortful and unclear and difficult, perhaps. Unexplained muscle aches, muscle tension. It's usually caused from chronic stress, holding inflammation. It feels like your body is tight and sore without injury, as though it's bracing for something far too long. I'll get this like right up here in my neck. It'll just get stiff all of a sudden and it won't release. And I do acupressure in there and I push it in and I release to clear it out and get clean circulation in there, clean blood. So heart palpitations is very common, or chest tightening. Now you have to be careful with these things because if you're getting chest tightening, there may be something else bigger involved. So consider that as well. So sometimes it is good to go to the emergency room or call an ambulance or something. Many times though, it's from autonomic imbalance, unresolved fear, stress, feels like your heart is racing or constricted, even when you're not consciously anxious. Frequent illness or slow recovery, immune suppression from prolonged stress. Feels like your body can't bounce back any way that tries and staying depleted longer than minor challenges. I can really relate to that one. Sensitive to noise, lights, or crowds, it's sensory overload. I go through that sometimes. And it's nervous system exhaustion. It feels like your system can't filter stimulation anymore and needs quiet to recover. It's because sometimes I'm in loud areas and it's constant. And then it's like, that's it, I'm done. I need to just hide in the closet or something, just, protect myself, almost like I'm autistic or something. These
Well,
signals.
sometimes I was going to mention that, the techniques that we use for special populations,
Mhm.
it's not just for those special populations. It's
Oh,
common
thank
sense
God.
we should be doing in our own life.
Yes.
I worked at
Yes.
a children's nursing home years ago. A difficult job. It was children that weren't expected to reach age 21. And they had a room called a snoozling room, where it's all quiet, calm, sensory, uh, good sensory stuff. And on our breaks, the nurses would go in there, at nighttime on our shift, and we would just sit in the basket that they would, and listen to the soft lights or the music, and it's like your car. You've got to keep gas in it to keep it running. You have to keep recharging yourself. You just, you know, even the electric cars, they have to be recharged. You've got your regular car needs gasoline, and your body needs fuel. Sometimes that's in the form of food. Sometimes it's in the right emotional stimulation or just having balance. I've had people come to me for migraine treatments holistically and say, well, I've always had them. I get them before that time of the month. It's just the way I am. Well, your body's not meant to be just the way you think it is. It's
Mhm.
still a warning sign. It's not normal, and there are things you can do. Don't just accept that just the way I am, I have to suffer.
Right, right. There's I medically even saying some of the things you're just saying, I actually could add a lot to that. But if there's a patient with that problem, yeah, it's really interesting that these signals don't arrive all at once. They layer slowly, and some of these problems that you mentioned, they come up slowly, quietly, and intelligently, long before a crisis really appears. They can be a precursor to something major that could happen if you ignore them. So the body doesn't betray us, it protects us by trying to communicate with us. We need to listen. We need to learn how to listen to our bodies. And this is important too. When you have some of these symptoms, you need to recognize the symptom first. And I think that's some of the most difficult things for people to do, is recognizing various symptoms. Maybe it's not something you usually get and you notice it more commonly, but maybe it's something you get a symptom of. Maybe you get light headaches, so you ignore them because you get them so often. It's a problem because it could be something growing and getting worse inside of you. You just cannot let it go.
Well,
Do
one
you have any?
example, physiologically, a couple years ago, my doctor, my family doctor, who's known me for years, she
Mhm.
noticed my hands and feet were swelling, and she said, "Why are they swollen?" And I shrugged my shoulders. I said, "They've been swollen ever since my hysterectomy." And she goes, "You know that's not connected in any way to your hysterectomy." And I said, "Yeah, I guess I never took the time to pay attention." It was actually a precursor warning sign to kidney stones that I didn't know I had yet.
Mhm.
Didn't actually get diagnosed for a couple more years. I haven't had that problem since I resolved the kidney stones. And, so that's the body was trying to do its job and let me know. And I was just laughing it off like, oh, I'm getting old, like I said
You're
before,
paying attention, right?
as we're kids, our parents, we're trained to ignore pains like that because our parents say, oh, it's just growing pains. Now at my age, it's growing old pains, and I still brush it off, but it doesn't have to
I
be.
love
We're
that.
not meant
Well put.
and it doesn't
Growing
have
old
to be that.
pains.
Sometimes if we just
Right. It
reframe
it
the way
really
we
does.
talk, yeah. So
Yeah. Um, there's so many things though. If anyone has any questions on about anything that we've talked in these previous sections or yet to come, they can always call me 715-892-7500. Leave comments if you like, and I'll try to get back with you. One of the things that I used to get a lot were rashes. I would get stress and I'd start getting rashes. And then my pH level, once again, would drop drastically. And my body would go in fight or flight. And it was from stress. I was under a lot of stress growing up, severe stress growing up. And it's unfortunately that it has affected me with certain things, even as an adult. My body flips into the fight or flight very quickly, instantaneously. And if I wanted to, it's always there, but I don't want it on a daily basis. So I'm actually mitigating things, medically speaking, to try and get my body to calm down and have my pH come up at the same time. All of these things, though, can lead to anxiety. And even the idea of having to deal with what I'm dealing with can cause anxiety and all these other problems and fear. Like, where is this going? Is this going to be something that's going to come up later? But it's unfortunate that I've had to go so long in my life having these situations. They're minor to me because I know how to deal with them and I can get to the root cause, but I still am in a environment of high stress. So, yeah, I
and
need
many
to.
times people are afraid to go get emergency medical care because of the financial aspect. Maybe they don't have insurance. I want to let people know that if you show up in a hospital with a life-threatening emergency, they will treat you and they have means of getting emergency funding to cover your bill. It's not that you're going to be left bankrupt because of this. There are resources out there because the hospital wants to
Good
get
to
paid.
know. Good to
Maybe
know.
you won't be covered as an outpatient, but for that
Mhm.
emergency, there's coverage available.
Yeah. So these signals don't arrive all at once. They're layered slowly, quietly, intelligently. long before a major crisis may or may not appear, but the body doesn't betray us. It protects us. It's communicating. Please listen. We're going to take a commercial break. In our final segment, we'll talk about how to respond when your body sends an emergency signal, which means without fear, panic, or self-judgment. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. Let's talk about how to listen, how to respond, and when the body calls for attention. So, emergency signals, how do we respond? How could we respond? We need to be practical and calming. Pause, first thing, pause instead of push. Take a time out. Go outside. I have chickens. This is why I have chickens. I go outside. I take care of my chickens. I collect some eggs. I throw them some food, change their water out. Take that time out. So important in life. You have an anxiety attack. Take time with nature. Nature soothes. Nature is calming. We need that. Nature is healing. Ask what changed before symptoms began. Recreate it in your mind. We want to find that trigger. These things have triggers, And even though I may be under a lot of stress, a trigger is what we need to push me to that point. What was the trigger? What happened? Who walked in the room? Who started yelling? Where did this noise come from? What is I seeing all of a sudden in front of me? What's around me? Look for that trigger. Ask, what changed before the symptoms began? Period. Okay, always remember to support the body. Don't fight it. Seek integrative, whole person care. Support the body in many ways. You can't just take care of these things yourself most of the time. So ask people around you. Have they noticed something in you? Have they noticed something? Maybe they're feeling the same thing. Maybe there's something in the air. Maybe there's a smell or toxins in the air that's affecting both of you. Maybe there's somebody turns on the TV and turns on a news station that gets them upset. There's got to be a trigger somewhere, and avoid your triggers because you don't need that in your life. You don't need that around you. You need to have your calm sanctuary, being your sanctuary. Remember, one signal this week, respond with kindness instead of dismissal. So if it's somebody who's yelling or screaming or turning a TV channel on, and be kind. Don't just dismiss them and whatever. And recognize and reframe symptoms as information, not failure. It's not your fault. It's just something that we go through. I want to thank our guest from the show, the Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. Peggy Smith, please let our audience know how to contact you with questions.
Before I do that, I just want to bring up one point. Though stress is a cause of many illnesses, this is a very stressful time of year for many people. And if it's overwhelming for you, it doesn't mean that you're failing as a person. You're somehow bad because you don't like your family, but it does mean that it might help to talk to a professional. And the 988 suicide line is not just for people who are actively engaged in suicidal ideation. They are a resource to put you in touch with mental health professionals, or even a 15-minute conversation can help you see what's really going on, that give you a different perspective, so and they would know whether or not you're in an emergency situation. But sometimes you just need an objective stranger who's a professional, knows how to ask the right questions. So my show is at 1 o'clock on every Eastern Standard Time, The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. That's the name of my YouTube channel. And thank you for having me today, Gloria.
Absolutely. Always a joy.
So
Very
everybody
productive
stay
too.
healthy and well.
Okay, and thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to be on our show for a free medical intuitive reading, it's a mini reading, but it is free. So please contact me, 715-892-7500. I really would love to hear from you. Remember, compassion for the body, patience over urgency. Healing begins the moment the body feels heard. Okay? Remember from the book of Matthew, the Psalms, and Peter, come to me who all are weary and burdened. The Lord gives me strength to his people. And cast all of your anxiety on him because he cares for you. God bless our viewers, and therefore, with the grace of God go I. Until next time, I hope you have gained a deeper understanding of yourself and of healing. Take care.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.